two teams that are struggling, to say the least.
Different reasons.
I'm curious where you're going to go with this one, because Niners are a team that a lot of their struggles have been through injury, and they've got some stars that are out. They will still be out here in this game. They get to host this one against the Chicago Bears, but the Bears, they'll be moving on from Matt Eberflus, and this will be the first game with Thomas Brown as the interim head coach. And do you get the interim head coach bump, which we have seen before from some teams? Is that maybe your matchup that matters? But what are you thinking about when you think about Bears Niners this week?
Yeah, my matchup that matters is San Francisco versus the interim head coaching bump from the Chicago Bears. I honestly, I had mixed feelings about the Bears elevating Thomas Brown to head coach, because when they elevated him to offensive coordinator, you've seen so many things about this Bears offense kind of click. And despite the fact that he was working within the constraints of the same playbook that had already been installed, he was able to, the way that he called games and the way that he was able to get more information to Caleb Williams in the form of increased motion and really making things easier, giving Caleb Williams easier outs and more answers to the question, whether that is by identifying things pre-snap or just calling shorter developing plays. Thomas Brown has been able to do that beautifully just in the short sample size that we've seen. Bears offense, since he's took over, I think has over 100 more passing yards per game than it did under Shane Waldron. And you see that Caleb Williams is more confident because of all of the information and the answers that he's being given. He's blossomed against the blitz. He's done really, really well in the face of pressure, and which has really worked out given that this offensive line has struggled this season because of injury or what have you. Thomas Brown has done so beautifully there that now you're adding all of the extra duties of being a head coach on top of that. And is that going to stretch him a little bit too thin? Is it too much too quickly? I mean, this is a guy that 3 weeks ago was the passing game coordinator and not having regular meetings with Caleb Williams at all, or having anything that he was really in charge of on game days and on the field as far as play calling goes. And now you've gone from, all right, you got 3 weeks to get used to play calling. Now you're going to have to call plays, because he will still call plays. Now on top of having to call the game and all those in-game situations. But that all being said, the Bears players so far have responded very, very well to Thomas Brown's brand of coaching, which is why I think that we've seen the bump happen from time and again, but it's because these guys get a fresh voice, and it's a guy that they wanted, and it's a guy that they can really get behind, and they're going to have all the motivation in the world to go against a San Francisco team that is decimated by injuries and really unrecognizable for what we thought they were going to be earlier in the season, especially now that not only Christian McCaffrey is out, but so is Jordan Mason. So you don't know how many points they're going to be able to put up on the board. And the fact that this Bears offense is healthy for the most part, and you do know that they're capable of scoring points, and you know that Caleb Williams wants to throw down the field. He's got this kind of unshakable confidence in himself. On passing, he's got passing touchdowns of 20 or more yard throws this season. He's in weeks 1 through 12, he only had 2. Week 13 at the Lions, against the Lions defense, he had 2. So he matched his season total before that on passing touchdowns of 20 yards or more. So he's confident in the scheme that it's now run by Thomas Brown. I just want to make sure that Brown is not stretched a little bit too thin to where you see this offensive progress kind of taper off, given all of the extra stuff he's now responsible for.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point that you make. I mean, my matchup that matters is the Niners defense as a whole versus the Bears offense as a whole, simply because the Niners defense, we think about it as one of the best in the NFL, one of the most talented in the NFL. They're hurting right now. Yeah. 52.6 defensive grade the last 3 weeks. They are 0-3 in those games, and they are 30th in the NFL in overall defensive grade. And so it's been tough for this team, I think, all season long, but in particular where they're currently at as a football team. And we'll see how motivated they are to go out there. Certainly at home, you don't think that they're going to lay down at all whatsoever, but this is an opportunity for Thomas Brown and I think even more so than Thomas Brown, just the players on the Chicago Bears offense to have one of their best days. DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, these guys are going up against a 49ers secondary, 65.9 PFF grade this season, 69.7 coverage grade. Those are top half of the league, right around the middle of the league. But over the last month, it's been lower for all of those numbers. And just so when you match up with where a team is going, I understand that the Bears just fired their head coach, and that's never like a place that you want to be. But I actually think that the last half of this, I should say the last month of this season, should be able to give us some good moments from this Bears offense starting this week, even with a tough task of going on the road to face San Francisco. So that to me is the matchup that matters. I feel like it has to be, what does this offense look like now that their interim their new play caller is now elevated to head coach? I agree with you completely. I just got to echo that I truly do think that that is the matchup that matters, and how Thomas Brown is able to handle all of those things. On the offensive side of the ball, I think that DeAndre Swift is my plus factor here. I just have not been very impressed with DeAndre Swift at all this season from the Chicago Bears. 0.20 missed tackles forced per attempt, 2.1 yards after contact, just a 70 rushing grade this season. 70, it's not too bad. It's not like he's been terrible or anything like that, but the investment that they made in him, and for him to be the RB1, it felt like this rushing attack was going to be a lot more effective than it has been this year. And I think I've been disappointed with DeAndre Swift being the top guy. I felt like it should have been better with him in the new contract and bringing him in. So I'd like to see him be a plus factor. If the offense is going to get a bump overall, I know we're going to talk about the passing game and Caleb Williams, but I would actually like to see the run game get a lot better. And I'd like to see DeAndre Swift have one of his best games of the season this week.
Yeah, for a lot of the season, DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson especially were utilized just incorrectly, quite honestly. And you didn't see them. DeAndre Swift excels when you're able to get him in space. So whether that is kind of some of these longer toss routes or the, throwing to him in the flat, getting the ball out of the backfield, that kind of stuff, that's where DeAndre Swift can really shine, where I think for a lot of the first part of the season, you saw him just running up the middle, inside zone, kind of up the gut kind of stuff. And you were just like, that's not the player he is. He's not big enough for that kind of stuff. That's Roschon Johnson. And then not utilizing Roschon Johnson in those, especially goal line situations, where that's kind of the first thing that Thomas Brown did. I think it was the first touchdown, or one of the first touchdowns that the Bears scored post Shane Waldron firing, was in fact goal line. Roschon Johnson comes in and just runs it up the gut with an extra offensive lineman as a lead blocker, rather than the one that's taking the handoff. So I totally agree with you that I think that there's room for that to get a lot better, and for DeAndre Swift to showcase a little bit more of what he's good at. I just don't think he's been put in the right situations to do so. However, my plus factor is, it goes along with everything we've just talked about, and it is Caleb Williams, but Caleb Williams specifically limiting kind of those rookie moments, because what gets lost in all of the stuff about Matt Eberflus getting fired and not inexplicably not calling the timeout is that Caleb Williams held the ball too long. That was absolutely something that he should have been prepared for and all that kind of stuff. Now, he gets a pass for some of this stuff because he's a rookie. And part of being the head coach is being able to save your players from themselves in situations like that, or not put them in a situation where they're the ones that need to make those calls quite yet, because they're just not experienced or seasoned enough to do so. But you have seen things kind of week in and week out where there's a missed throw down the field. It just happened this last game. He missed DJ Moore on a mesh route, on a pass less than 10 yards down the field, which could have been a touchdown pass with about 46 seconds left in that game. So that's something that you want to see Caleb Williams click on stuff like that and not make those kinds of mistakes. But you realize that there is growing pains, and ultimately it falls on the coaching staff, and it will fall on Thomas Brown to bail him out of some of those situations, or at least to put him in situations that are more advantageous, rather than what it looked like earlier in the year, which was a total baptism by fire. And there was just nothing easy on this Bears offense in general. It was longer developing routes. You had to get through progressions, all this kind of stuff right from jump, when you didn't have the offensive line to do it, and you had a rookie quarterback that was just going to take a little bit longer to process all of that. That is gone from this offense right now. But there are still some of these rookie moments that you just want to see Caleb kind of learn from, and just not make the same kind of mistakes, and identify certain things in situations where you can kind of give your team that lift or pull ahead and be that person to kind of overcome adversity, which he's done already also beautifully. I mean, you think about the Washington game, he got the Bears their first lead of the game with 25 seconds left. You think about being able to force overtime against the Minnesota Vikings. You think about that, what should have been a game-winning drive against the Green Bay Packers, where you get the team into Cairo Santos's range and then the field goal gets blocked. All of that is really encouraging, and why I think Caleb Williams ultimately will be fine, but you just want to see less and less of those rookie moments as the season goes on.
I'm cautiously excited about this game for Caleb. Road game, historic team, new head coach. Would love to see something from him. I really would. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below. So if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you can become one today.